So this is my story about how I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I started having fevers in February of 2004. I was having fevers for 3.5 months, every single day, reaching 104 degrees. I was taking 12 Tylenol pills a day. During this time, I didn't get a 1-day break. It was non-stop. My husband took me to the ER 3 times, and each time it was a guess as to what was wrong with me. And every time the guess was that I had an upper respiratory infection. The first 2 visits, I was given antibiotics. The third visit, when I went back, I was kind of met with some opposition because I could tell that they were tired of me coming back. So I was told, Mrs. Johnson, you've got to give the medication time to work. So I said, I'm not getting any better. Now, each visit, they did run a lot of blood work. All of my blood work had come back negative. So they were telling me that they could not find anything. So my question was, well, if you're not sure about what I have, if you can't find anything that is wrong with me, why am I being prescribed antibiotics? Because they're not doing anything. So again, they just said I got to get the medication time to work. So it was a couple weeks had gone by. I was getting worse. My husband called home one day to check on me. My daughter gave me the phone. I reached up for it, and I just remember feeling this excruciating pain in my chest. So I screamed to the top of my lungs, and my husband said, that's it. I'm coming home. I'm coming to take you to the hospital. And I had insisted that I am not going. I do not want to spend another 14, 15 hours in the ER only to come out with the same information, which was basically information that was not positive information. So he did not listen. Thankfully he didn't. You will find out why. So he came home to take me. I couldn't get up because the pain in my chest was unbearable. So he said, look, I'm going to carry you. You can bite me, scratch me, kick me, do whatever you need to do. I'm getting you out of here because you got to go. So we went, and as soon as I was in to see an ER doctor, I told him about the fevers and 12 Tylenol pills a day that I was taking, and he was immediately alarmed and said, you know, I don't even know how you are even standing here. You've been having fevers this long. So he immediately got on his phone and ordered a bed for me because I was being admitted. So I had tests done there, and when my test came back, I was absolutely floored. I had 4 pints of blood in my body. I had a lot of fluid around my heart, and the doctor told me that I was just days from going into congestive heart failure. I ended up having blood transfusion. I had one first, and within 12 hours, all of that blood was gone. I had another one, and that blood stuck. And I've retained that blood ever since. And so I get admitted, and 3 days later, my lungs completely collapsed. And I remember the nurse I had. She had to actually go through the 4th machine to finally realize that I was not breathing because I was slipping away. And she, oh, bless her heart, she was walking so slow. She was an older nurse. She was walking so slowly across the room to get 2 different machines that didn't work. Then she went out and left the room, which means she was walking even slower. And by the time she was coming back for her 3rd trip, I felt myself slipping away. So when she got to me, that machine didn't work. And so she called out for somebody else to bring a machine. This is the 4th machine. So she has that machine, she puts it on my finger, and I remember looking at the little monitor, and I could see the numbers going from 70 something all the way down to about 68, 67 or something, and I ended up passing out. The next thing you know, I woke up in the bed with oxygen tubes down my nose, in my nose and down my throat. So that was a very, very scary experience, and I had to end up having an emergency surgery to have a lymph node removed out of my neck because it was swollen. Now during this time, I'm talking to a ton of doctors, and the common word I kept hearing was cancer. I was told that I had potentially had one of 4 different cancers, which only one of them had a chance of going into remission, and the other ones was either a 6-month prognosis to 2 years. So I had to sit in the hospital for a week and a half, sitting there thinking, do I have cancer, and what are my options? So I'm thinking about my husband, I'm thinking about my children. I had 2 babies and diapers, and I had a teenager. And when people say when you're on your deathbed, you think about, you know, the dreams that you didn't achieve, goals that you didn't meet. And I can honestly and unequivocally tell you that was not my position lying on what could have potentially been my deathbed. I was thinking about, I was not ready to leave my husband, I was not ready to leave my children, I wasn't ready to leave my mother, and I was not thinking about any dreams. My dream at that moment was to live and to not die. And so after spending that time thinking about my life could potentially be over, or if I have the other cancer, what is it that I have to go through before I can actually, you know, either be in remission or be healed of that cancer. It was a very, very scary situation for me. I was also told that I was going to be on oxygen for the rest of my life. Well, after 2 weeks of being in the hospital, I eventually got a proper diagnosis because they also thought I had lupus, which is also another autoimmune disease, but I didn't have that. I had mixed connective tissue disease. And basically what it is just inflammation in the body, you know, joint pain, and you know, I still battle with fevers a little bit, but they eventually went away. I started on 18 pills a day, and over the years, my pills per day had gone down, and probably maybe 2-3 years ago, it's been a little bit, can't really remember exactly when, but I ended up being taken off of all of my medication, so I don't take any medication. And the day that I left the hospital, I was breathing on my own without assistance from oxygen, and I've been breathing on my own since. This is the thing that I will tell you about my autoimmune disease experience. It took years for them to diagnose me. And I remember one common theme when I would go to the doctor, whenever they would take blood tests, I would be told that I had a low white blood count. And I remember some doctors, not all of them, but some of them would actually take it a little further to ask me, has anyone ever told you that you had a low white blood count? And I said, I've heard that a lot. Has any doctor ever pursued the reasons behind it? And I said, no. So it actually took my gynecologist who brought it to my attention, and she told me she was concerned that I had a low blood count, because that means that I could be susceptible to getting infections. So she actually advised that I go see a hematologist. And I remember I saw him in 1999, and I remember seeing in his record, he made up a profile of me, and it had on there that it could be a connective tissue disorder. And because I had been told for so long the potential of having lupus, that was the first thing that came to my mind. So I ended up seeing a lupus specialist. She had run all her tests. That came back negative. So she said, no, you don't have lupus. I can't say that you will. I can't say that you won't. But we're going to just focus on the positive and that you don't. So it actually took having my baby, which was in November 2003. And my rheumatologist told me usually autoimmune diseases in women come out after they have their baby. And that's what happened to me, because I had her in November. February is when my body went haywire. My eyes had swollen, my hands had swollen, my fingers had swollen. I had trouble walking sometimes. My husband had to carry me. I couldn't even go to the restroom. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. And then when the fevers set in, which was in February, that's when everything really started to deteriorate in my health and started to go down very, very fast. So to this day, I am so grateful to God that my husband did not take no for an answer, but he was also very observant, because I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I don't see anything differently about myself. But he said that I was getting tinier and tinier and tinier. And I remember being able to put my jeans on and not even having to unzip them or zip them, you know, to get in or get out. I could just put them on when they're zipped and buttoned up. And at that time, I was pretty much the same size, and it just didn't dawn on me. But he was a very observant husband, and he knew that trouble was right around the corner. So I just wanted to share my story, because autoimmune disease is one of those diseases that mimics so many other symptoms of other diseases, where it's just not something that doctors think of firsthand. You know, there are a lot of different things that have to go into determining whether someone can be properly diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and then properly finding out which one is another whole task in itself. So I'm so grateful to God for my husband, for one, but I also praise God every day that he spared my life to give me another chance, and I'm using this second chance to share my story, but also to up my responsibility in taking care of myself. But also I've become a women's health advocate, an American Heart Association advocate, and a functional medicine advocate, to just basically be a source of inspiration for women to pay attention to their bodies, because our bodies give us a message one way or another. The thing is, are we going to listen? So I hope this video has been of some help to you. Please like and subscribe, because I've got a whole lot more about health and life, relationships, entrepreneurship, marriage, and a whole lot more to share. Thank you so much for watching this video.